All right, welcome back everyone to another cybersecurity pocket edition workshop by the Q project. And today we're going to be talking about clickjacking, which is something most people I don't think have heard of. I hadn't heard of it until I started looking into it. And basically what it is from this definition is the it's a malicious act, and it's getting someone to click a link or click something that they didn't intend to click. And the reason they didn't intend to click it is because you hit it, or it was like invisible basically. So there's ways to use HTML to add frames or buttons that are overlaid by another button that you would want to click. And then when you click it, you're clicking a malicious link. And so the kind of like the flow chart of how this happens is we have an attacker and he has a website and he wants you to access the website somehow. But most cases, people aren't just going to click a link to view a malicious website. So what he can do is he can embed a link inside of another web page that is like a button that can or that can require action to go to the attacker's website. And so you go to this, you're on your browser, you're on this simple website, you click a link to open something, and then lo and behold, the attacker gets you to click his button, and then that takes you to something in the background on his website, or maybe it takes you straight to his website. Uh, One of like the simple examples of how this would work is if you're browsing the internet and you get a pop-up and you're trying to close the pop-up, it's possible for them to put a hidden invisible button over the top of the X. So the only way to get out of the pop-up is to click the X, but you don't realize that you're also clicking something else. This is used a lot for like likes and tweets and all that stuff. So people can create it to where they hide a hidden button over another web page. And when you click that button has an action that likes a Facebook post, which I didn't think that exists, but I guess people use that. Or for Twitter, you can get like a like on Twitter. So people can use this for like stuff like that that's a little less malicious, just trying to like steal likes from people for their post. But this is also used for more harmful stuff, which is why it you have to know how to prevent it. And so the way that these people are able to do it is using the iframes. So inside of HTML, there's frames and iframes, and these things they just allow for embedding things into a website. And with iframes, it's called the frame within a frame. With that's why the I is in front of it, and it can embed videos, documents, and a lot of the times you can put another web page inside of a web page and have it embedded. And you can imagine that if you can embed a web page inside another web page, that's you can make that web page invisible, but then it's still there, and then someone might click something that you want them to click. You can overlay the Facebook like button over the top of the X button, and so they see an X button to click out of a pop-up, but really there's another website that's invisible and you're clicking a like on their post, something like that. And an example of how this looks in HTML is if you've ever used HTML, this looks pretty familiar. You have an iframe with the source of the URL, and then like your width, your height, whether it can be full screen or not. And if it was a YouTube video like ours at the Q Project's YouTube channel, you can see that this is what an embedded video would show up as from YouTube. And this was one of our most recent workshops where we built a web crawler for Halloween. So if you guys want to check out our YouTube page to see that, it's a cool video to watch. And no, it shouldn't be playing though. So let's go on to the next slide. So prevention. To prevent iframes, it can be done on the client or the server side. So if it was done on the client side, it would be something such as your browser including extra info inside of it to try and detect whether these frames are being like put on a website but are invisible, which are like is in most of the time if it's invisible it's going to be for malicious use. So you can do it client side, but it's a lot easier to do it server side. And most people use what's called X-frame options, which is part of HTTP. And so basically what X-frame options is you're passing an additional header along with your HTTP response. So whenever you're sending an HTTP request to get a web page, the server is going to be passing back an X-frame options header, which tells you what and what isn't allowed to be embedded. There's 3 values for these headers. The strictest one would be deny. So this would be saying that the server saying that nothing is allowed to embed this video or website or document. Same origin is what websites would use. Say they want to be able to embed their own video from their homepage onto another page within their website. Then you can use same origin, saying that like this is from the same URLs or like origin URL, which means that I can embed whatever I want without issues. And the last header option that you can include is allow from your URI, or basically allow from a URL. So you specify what URL is allowed to embed or frame certain objects. And so to make all this a little more clear, I'm gonna be showing you guys a very basic example of what this is inside of VS Code. So let me switch tabs and get that open. So right here, I just have 2 basic files. I had gotten these from a source on the internet, but it's just fairly simple. You have an index HTML file, the starting HTML file for every website, and then another one called facebook.html. This doesn't actually link to Facebook. It's just pretending to be like someone that's trying to steal likes from you by embedding their Facebook page on another web page. And so when facebook.html is called, it has one thing within it. It's a button. And whenever that button's clicked, it pops up an alert on the browser saying that you liked a photo from someone. Within the index.html, we have one main thing that we're looking at, which is the iFrame. And this iFrame is including this Facebook HTML file. In a regular use case, you wouldn't be including a file you have on your own computer. You would be including like a malicious website that you have up and running, something of that nature. And so in this index file, we just have our frame, and then we have a button. Whenever this button's clicked, it accesses the Facebook HTML file. And the last thing before I run this that is of interest is this opacity. Right now, the opacity is at 0.5. And so you're going to be able to see what that means when I run the server right now. So we can see that we have a little text box and it says click here for in-person learning. I think at this point, a lot of us would be like, oh, let me click that, like, so I can go back to school now. But you can see that there's like a barely like visible button over the top of click here. And so if I click this, it says like pressed. So technically that would be if someone hid their own web page over the top of this button, you would be clicking their button instead of clicking the button you want to click. Right now, it seems fairly obvious because you can see that there's like 2 buttons and one of them's over the top of the other. But if I close this server real quick and I change the opacity to 0, you'll see that when I start it up again, it just looks as if there is no button there at all. And so you go over it and you think that you're clicking this button called click here. Instead, you clicked that other button that was on top of it, but the button's now invisible. And so it was saying you liked a post or whatever. So that's the dangers of clickjacking. At this point, it's fairly secure. Most people don't have ways of doing this because the server side prevents this with Xframe or Xframe options. So I'm going to show you how that works as well. This is a second VS Code window with a different file. So it's another index.html file. This one's a little more basic. This is just a simple way to see if a website has safeguards against these clickjacking attacks. So the first website I'm going to use is I'm going to create an iFrame with the website example.com. We've used this in the past. It's just a really basic website. And if I run this, you'll see that it displays the text that I had on the index file, but it also displays this, which is the website. If I type in example.com, you'll see that this is exactly what shows up inside of here, inside this iFrame embedded website, which is what is dangerous. You could imagine that if this was invisible and then you added buttons over the top of it, then someone could start playing around with what they want someone to do for them. But what we'll see is a lot of big websites, they have safeguards against this because of this. They include a header within their response as the server, and they'll usually say same origin or deny. They'll just say that no one's allowed to embed my content, or no one except for me is allowed to embed my content. So coming back here, we're going to use another iFrame. This time we're going to use youtube.com's main homepage. And so whenever we run this, you'll notice that it behaves differently. This time it doesn't open. It says that Firefox can't open, or if you had Google or Safari, it would say the same thing. But it basically says that to protect your security, so it's saying that as the user, this is protecting you. It won't, YouTube doesn't allow you to see this as an embedded file. So you have to open the site manually. And so you can see that a lot of web pages have that in place. You're not allowed to view their website from another website. So this is the safeguard that helps a lot of people from getting attacked. And I think with that, I'll answer any questions you guys have. But with that, that's all I have for today. These are our socials. And then these are the sources I used. So yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat, and I'll answer them.
So is there a way to, let's say you click the invisible button so it sends a like, and then is there a way to like make the button disappear so then you click, and so like pretty much the user doesn't notice? Because if you're just clicking that and nothing happens, you're eventually going to get away from the website.
Yeah, there's ways to have it to where it's overlaid, and then like as soon as you click it, like you're saying, like it will just disappear or something. And so maybe you'll do like, you'll click once, you're like, oh, that didn't work, and then you click again, and then it does what it was supposed to do. But little do you know, in the background you were clicking a button on a completely random website that you didn't even know was there. So
what you can actually do with clickjacking is that if there's a button on top of another button, of the true button, what the malicious button can do when you click on it is do whatever the malicious actor wants you to do, and then what the malicious actor can do is remove that button and then simulate a click. using JavaScript. You can do
Yeah.
like button.click, and then just the user is none the wiser at this point.
Yeah, that's a even better way for them to do it, because then the user doesn't have to double click. It's just like one click and then they assume it worked. All right, are there any other questions about this workshop?
No, I think I'm good. I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah, I think we're good for now. So thank you all for attending. We'll be back next week with another workshop. And I'm going to end the recording right now.